How's it going, guys, and welcome back for another video. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be covering a trip I did last winter all the way up into Central Queensland. Now, this area was all new to me. I'd never dove here before, and in fact, it was actually further north than I'd ever dove in my life, although it was supposed to be home to some really epic coastal diving. But it didn't exactly go to plan. Day one, we rock up to the ramp, supposed to be super nice weather, and we're met with rain and a good 10 to 15 knots of wind. But we had driven a long way and the boys were still super keen, so we headed out for a look. Day one, very slow. It took us a long time to find any fish, but we did manage to grab a couple nice finger marking things before the day was over. And a little defeated, we headed in and camped up for the night, planning to hopefully push a little further north the next day. Morning two, we rock up to the ramp. It's windy again, but the viz was still good. And the lads were keen to get stuck into some fish, so we suited up, jumped in the boat, and headed north.
One of the main reasons we made this trip was to target black jewfish, a fish we really don't see a lot in my local area. Day one, we didn't see any, but on this morning, the first spot had a nice school of dew, but they were only small, and strangely enough, they were silver dew, and this is a lot further north than I'd have expected to see them. We found a few crayfish here, although most of them weren't very big. This one in particular wasn't too bad, but I really didn't feel like fighting a stingray for it. A couple dives later, I found a nice blue bar parrot. Now, I usually don't take these guys too much unless I've had a bit of a slow day and there's not much around, but with the effort we had on day one, I was pretty keen to shoot some fish, so I decided to go for it. Unfortunately, after I missed that guy, I couldn't find him again, and we did spend a bit more time exploring this area, but it was just really quiet. Although I did find this Queensland groper, he was pretty lit up. Some days when it's slow like this, it can be hard to appreciate how cool some of this diving actually is.
With the winds we had, we were pretty limited to diving headlands, but one of the lads had a spot not too far from the coast with a bit more depth on it, so we decided to head there for a look next.
We made a few dives here, but it was feeling very barren. Apart from the school of small Spanish flag and the odd large cod, none of us really saw much at all.
With not much going on there, we made the call to move on to the next headland. Now, this next one, the lads informed me, was not super common for black dew, but they said there's plenty of other good fish there, and by this stage, I was pretty keen to just shoot a few worth eating.
First dive here, I tried to creep up to this ledge from a bit of shallower water, hoping not to spook anything that might be sitting there. There were a couple more parrot here, but none of them were big enough for me to want to take. A couple dives on, I found a crack that looked to have a bit more life, so I took a dive and found a nice sized parrot.
That was the only parrot, but this cod went into a nice looking cave, so I'm going to go have a look, see if there's anything else in there.
I went to have a sticky beak at that cave and all I managed was a jump scare from an eel.
We didn't spend too much longer here as we really weren't finding what we were hoping for. We jumped back in the boat and we headed a little further north, but not too far up the coast, so we were met with some pretty poor visibility. So the lads decided we'd head back to some of those spots we dove the day before in the hopes that possibly a few more fish had showed up down that way.
We headed to a spot the lads had got plenty of dew from in the past, and finally we managed to find a couple. However, they just weren't the size we wanted, and we weren't even really sure these fish were legal, so we didn't take any. We spent a bit of time searching some caves in this area and finally we found a few fingermark. My camera turned off right as I went to shoot this guy, but I did manage to get a nice one.
Right into fish.
Next dive, I found a cave holding a few more. Now, most of them were pretty little, but I did notice a little larger one sitting there, so I decided to take the shot. This guy came in around 45 centimeters, so definitely no trophy, but at this stage I was pretty happy just to put some fish in the esky. I spent a bit more time exploring these caves and I found plenty more of these smaller fingermark and a couple of those little black dew, but nothing really of substantial size.
After finding an area that was holding a few fish, the spirits had lifted a bit again. Now, with this spot showing more promise than it did the previous day, we decided we'd head to another spot that we had found a few fingermark on the day before, in the hopes that maybe some more fish or even a few bigger ones had moved in.
First dive here, I started by checking out a few of these rocks up in the shallows where I'd seen a couple of small fingermark hanging around the previous day. Those fish didn't seem to be hanging where they were the day before, so I made a second dive just down a little bit deeper and found a really good school sitting between a few boulders.
We dove this area for a little while longer, but unfortunately those fingermark were nowhere to be seen after I'd shot that guy. So it was time to head on to the last spot for the day. Now on this next spot, there was pretty much one small cave the previous day that held a couple of fingermark. So I was swimming around up in the shallows with my camera off, hoping to find that cave again. when I came across a really nice barra tucked up between two rocks. And lucky I was quick enough to flick my camera on right before getting a nice shot.
What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell is Mario? Hey? What other one? I didn't know there was one.
There's two sitting side by side in the cave. I got this one, stoned it. Didn't even go all the way through. Fucking did one spot. And then that one shot off somewhere. I don't know where. The deck must have got it.
I was literally swimming along looking for this cave for Corey's fingers, and I was like, what? That's a barra. So I turned my camera on and it just started moving. I was like, poof.
We threw those guys on the boat, then I got back to looking for that cave. A couple dives in, I spotted a big tail hanging out the back of a rock, but I decided I'd breathe up and dive on it a second time. Initially I thought it might have been a black Jew just because of how dark the tail was, but when I took the dive I could see it was another good barra. I decided not to take the shot as I wanted to get my mate to come and shoot it, but unfortunately by the time he made it over the fish had moved on.
After those couple of barra, we really didn't come across much else, so it was time to head home. Now, we had planned to dive the following day, but we had an engine light come in on the boat. The winds were predicted to get up to 20 knots or so, and the lads had already had a really hard slog for the fish we got. In fact, there was a few clips there I didn't even bother putting in because we just didn't see any fish there at all. So we made the call to just call it and head home, but luckily enough, we did manage to find a few fish, and it's always a good trip when you get to explore some new areas like that. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, or possibly even more. There was a fair bit of frustration there. But anyway, I'll catch you on the next one.